Thank you so much for your time, mate.
Oh, sorry, I'm late. I just totally fucking. It's
Look,
8 o'clock at night over here. I had dinner and I forgot that we were doing this.
oh,
Okay.
mate, you're a busy person. You're now doing movies, which is fantastic.
Hi.
Well, I'll get right into it because I know your time's valuable, mate. Shane Ambassador here from Triple M Australia. I know you've got a good background with Triple M.
Yeah, they've got a long history with Triple M.
Yeah, well, welcome again, and I'm really glad. Like, I remember, I mean, you've always admired horror, as far as I can remember. Way even back when you did Tales from the Crypt, and I think you're on Howard Stern's Private Parts. You know, you had something to do with movies for a long time.
Yeah, it's funny you should say that. I mean, I guess, I've been around it a lot. I just didn't actually get into the business of it until,
Yeah,
fairly recently. But yeah, I mean, I've always been a huge movie fan, and I've been in, little bit parts here and there, and obviously done a lot of music and stuff over the
yeah.
years for movies.
As a producer, though, it's been about a decade, as far as I know, since Nothing Left to Fear. So, what's taken so long now for this project, the
You
Breach?
know, I've been busy doing it this whole time, but this was the first thing that I actually got done, was financed and actually got made. I've been involved with dozens of different uh productions
Yeah,
or stages of development, and things just, it's a tough business. Things don't always pan out. Sometimes you'll have something ready to go, and you've got it's cast and everything, and something gets pulled out from underneath it. But yeah, it's ironically enough, doing the Breach, we actually managed to do it during COVID, which
I was
was a
unaware of that. Okay.
feat unto itself. But anyway, yeah, so that's basically what has been the catch. I've been doing it, I've been actively pursuing it this whole time.
It's a pretty good choice. It's a good film. It kind of crosses genres, and it has like a fake ending, kind of. There might be more breaches in the future.
Well, we didn't write it intentionally for that, but it is wide open, and there seems to be some interest in seeing where this goes from this point forward. So we'll see what happens.
It seems like a pretty big effort that it was made during the COVID period. Did you spend much time on set or on location?
Well, actually, okay, so what happened was Rodrigo Gudino, who's the guy who
The
actually,
director?
yeah, he directed it, but he also wrote the screenplay.
Yeah.
And when we got the green light to go ahead and do the production, they did it in a isolated location in the forest in Ontario. I forgot the name of the area. Everybody lived on set. It was there was nobody could leave, and there was a hotel there, and it wasn't staffed, so we had to run to the building. But anyway,
Yeah.
I wasn't there. It was lockdown, so all the Canadians were in lockdown in Canada shooting the movie, and I was in Los Angeles working on the score and looking at the dailies. So like I said, it's amazing that this thing actually happened when it did.
Did Rodrigo help you with the composing of the score? Did he give you any ideas, or did he just send you dailies and then you figured it out?
Um, you know, uh, I started writing stuff to the script early on, and I think around the time that they were going into production, I sent a couple demos to Rodrigo, and we had some sort of back and forth about tone and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
But really, I sort of had an idea of what I wanted to do and just sort of went with it. And then I worked with another scoring composer, a guy named Germany,
Okay.
named Abers is his name. I always forget his last name and see if I can remember what it is. I actually never physically met him.
Oh,
We sort of worked together online, basically. And so I was shooting him over ideas, and he was incorporating those into the orchestrated version
yeah.
of melodies. And so it was a lot of fun. And I wrote some acoustic bits that are as is in the film, and I had a good time doing it. But yeah, we discussed it a little bit. I just sort of, we just sort of went with my initial ideas.
You've probably got a pile of demos or bits laying around. You could make another movie out of those, I would say.
Well, no, not necessarily. I mean, when I start writing for, I mean, obviously I'm always working on music for the bands that I'm in. And
Yeah,
so
yeah.
when I'm writing for a movie, it's specific because it's a whole different process for me than writing music and composing
Oh,
stuff
yeah.
band oriented. So I get a hold of the story or the idea, and I start using a completely different process in my brain about writing for that. So I don't have a lot of demos of stuff. I'm not writing movie stuff all the time. I'm only doing it when there's something given to me or I find something that I'm going to be working on.
You're totally right. A musical score for a movie is totally different to when you're laying down an album, I'm sure.
Yeah,
Um,
it's completely different. I mean, but the writing process is it's one of the things that I love about doing it is
yeah,
I discovered that I come from a different place when I'm working for, say, the idea of a story and a mood and a visual and all that kind of stuff. And I didn't know that till the first time I actually wrote for something, specifically creating something for a specific idea. And I
yeah.
was like, this is interesting, So it's actually pretty fascinating for me.
Is a horror musical or a horror comedy something that you'd be interested in doing and writing and scoring down the track?
Uh, I mean, the idea has not occurred to me, especially not a horror comedy. But a horror musical, I don't know. It's a different kind of a thing. When you say a horror musical, obviously Rocky Horror comes to mind. And
Yeah, yeah.
that's not something that I've aspired to do at this point. So well, who knows? If somebody gave me a great script that was that kind of a thing, said just want to make a musical out of this, and there's the dialogue is the lyrics, and this is it would be an interesting thing, I suppose.
Did you have a cameo in The Breach? I know you've dabbled in a little bit of acting.
No, even though I've done it a couple times, I hate doing cameos, and
Okay.
I have established that I don't like doing it, and so every time I get an offer to do one, I turn it down.
What about, you worked with Clint Eastwood? Now that was a cameo.
Yeah, well, that was then. I mean, I think those, I mean, I love the fact that we got to work with Clint. He was one of my heroes. But at this point, I pretty much shy away from doing any cameo stuff.
Sure. What's the difference between the music industry and the film industry? Now that you're part of both, can you name any challenges that are different?
Well, I mean, they're very similar in a lot of ways, but then at the same time, I've found that the the hustle factor and the greed factor and
Right.
the whole integrity factor is way different in the film industry. The people are greedier. The hustle goes all the way to the highest rung of the ladder.
Right.
Okay, they hustle hard. These people. You can take an A-list actor, an A-list director, and an A-list producer, and they're all hustling. So it's a little bit different to me than the music industry. So that's the biggest difference to me. I think on a creative level, everybody's just trying to do their art,
Yeah.
and the amount of integrity that goes into that. There's some in the film industry, there's as much integrity and as much of a lack of integrity as there is in the music industry.
Wow, that's saying something from you. So that's interesting. What about music composers that you admire? Hans Zimmer comes to mind. Obviously, he's one of my favorite.
I love Hans Zimmer. I listen to a lot of movie scores. I drive around in my car and listen to them. I've always loved movie scores, and I love the marriage, and it's one of the reasons why I do what I do as far
Yeah.
as music is concerned, because if I'm going to be producing a movie, I'm obviously going to be involved in the music, but
Yeah.
the ultimate marriage is the right visual with the right music. It is emotionally the most satisfying. So, as a kid growing up, I mean, some of the great composers from the 40s and
Yeah.
50s. But I mean, for me, a lot of the, like you mentioned, Hans Zimmer, I love, and obviously John Williams is great, and I love Danny Elfman and
Jerry Goldsmith.
yeah, I was just gonna say Jerry Goldsmith is one of the ones from way back that I really remember as a kid, because that was
Yeah.
the 70s, and he was a major composer. And I'm trying to think of the name of the guy who did some of those great big MGM fucking scores back in the day. But those are all really, really effective. And then there's a lot of, small names that do a score here or there that are brilliant, but you don't hear their
Oh,
names. And I was mentioning the other day the girl who wrote the score for the Joker. That was an
yeah.
amazing score. Johnny Greenwood, who from Radiohead, has
Yeah.
done a fantastic scores, and then you've got Trent Reznor is doing it, and he's done some really cool stuff. So I'm very aware. I don't always remember all their names, but I'm very listening all the time.
You're in good company, Mr. Flash. That is for sure.
Yeah.
But a couple more before we wrap up. You were just talking about those movies from the 40s and 50s and that, even when you were growing up in the 70s. If you could go time traveling back to one of those movies and be in one or score one, anything that comes to mind? Because I know there's some classics, but anything that stand out?
Well, that's an interesting question. I mean, I don't know if it's not really necessarily about going back and getting involved in one of them, but just to be in the vicinity of one of those great movies. I mean, the first one that comes to mind, just because I saw it for the 15th time not too long ago, was Gone with the Wind.
Oh, yeah.
It's such a massive, Hollywood production in that golden era. So it would be really interesting. I would have loved to have been able to go back on the set for Jaws.
Oh,
I mean,
yeah.
I could go on. I mean, I love being on sets anyway. So I mean, I could name any movie and go, yeah, I would love to have been there. But yeah.
Did you help Rodrigo with any of the casting? Because I think Emily and Alan and Natalie, they're all really great.
Yeah, they're really good. Well, I mean, I wasn't really, they're all Canadian for one, and so I wasn't really familiar with them, but my Canadian partners were very familiar with them. But they turned me on to some of the different ones that they were thinking of, and I got a chance to be able to sort of look through their casting ideas and some of the reels that they had, and I was totally in agreement with who they cast. And the funny thing is one of the guys I do know well that was cast in the movie is Alex Lifeson. Alex Lifeson is the scientist on the TV.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
And so when his name came up, I said, "Oh yeah, that would be great," and it was great to get Alex on there. Yeah, no, I thought the casting was great, but I have to say that Rodrigo and Andrew and Michael were a little bit more familiar with these particular actors. But
are you a person that collects old movie posters or physical media? Have you got a collection, or is that not you?
I'm not really what you call a collector. I mean, I have some great horror posters from over the years scattered around, but I'm not a movie memorabilia entrepreneur.
Why should people watch The Breach? Out of all the movies that people can choose from while they're streaming, why should they click on the thumbnail for The Breach, in your opinion?
Oh, I just think it's a great slow burn kind of pseudo sci-fi horror movie that's actually a really good drama that has it develops into something. I mean, obviously it opens up with something seems a little bit wrong, but it's more story driven and character driven than the typical sort of little horror movie that comes out these days. So it takes a while to develop as to what exactly is happening here, and then when you finally get in the third act, it starts to really unravel. And so I think that's kind of cool.
They got such wicked special effects, practical effects. I mean, it reminded me of Return of the Living Dead towards the end, especially.
Yeah, well, I mean, practical effects are definitely my preference. If I don't ever have to use CGI, then I would prefer not to. You know, and you have to use it in a lot of places. It's a lot cheaper and it's a lot,
Oh yeah.
but when you use it to really create a whole visual look of something, it bothers me, and I think you can see through it. So I always believe in practical effects.
Well, thank you very much, mate. Do you go to the movies much? Do you get a chance? You know, you probably don't have much time.
I have very I have very little time. I mean, I watch a lot of stuff on TV because I'm in
Yeah.
hotels and stuff. But like I just went to go see Oppenheimer the other day, which was my first time physically in a theater in a couple months, which was great, you know. But I do what I can.
Now that soundtrack was amazing. That score.
Yeah, that score was great. And those are those sort of epic kind of scores that, I mean, that's not necessarily the kind of thing that I'd feel comfortable being offered to get into. I like something that's a little bit more melody driven and a little bit more smaller production. But I do love, I mean, Hans Zimmer is great at doing those sort of really,
Oh yeah.
really dramatic, huge scores.
Well, maybe we'll see you in the director's chair someday.
Oh,
Making a
that
short
comes
film,
up a lot.
short musical
Yeah,
film.
well, I don't have any aspirations to become a director at this point in time. I think that's a developed talent that you should, you know, it's like playing guitar, you know, you start and you work at it and that becomes your singular focus. So I don't have any intention to jump in and go, hey, I'm a director. But you know, 20 years from now, who knows?
I think You Could Be Mine in T2 is probably one of the most standout GNR songs on any soundtrack, and there's been a few. Have you got a favorite in any movies?
Oh,
Any moment?
like for of Guns N' Roses or just rock and roll in general?
Just rock and roll in general.
Yeah, well, God, we could sit here all day with movie scores. I mean, one of my favorite ones though that I thought of recently because he played one of the songs recently in concert was
Yeah.
Elton John when he did, not Elton John, I'm sorry, Cat Stevens when he did the score for Harold and Maude.
Harold and Maude.
One
What
of
a
my
classic.
favorite movies when I was a kid. But yeah, I mean, I go back to uh Easy Rider. I mean, I could go on. I mean, there's I mean, Tommy obviously is a musical, but that's a
Oh
great
yeah.
one.
Yeah.
Another one was there was a movie that used a cheap trick for their entire soundtrack. It was called Over the Edge, which was a teen movie with Matt Dillon.
Matt Dillon.
Yeah, it was. I saw it on TV. I don't think it was ever a feature movie. I think it was only a TV movie, and it was just a bunch of teenagers who had a lot of issues,
Yeah.
and Matt Dillon was one of them. I'm just trying to think. Star is Born, the one with Barbara Streisand and Chris
Oh yeah.
Christopher,
Chris
was great.
Christopherson.
Fuck. I'm just not thinking. And then I was thinking, I was driving today and I was driving up and I was going, God, man, you know, there's a couple movies that really use Bach and Beethoven
Oh
for
yeah.
the movies. And I was thinking about the Bad News Bears. One of that score was almost a character unto itself, you know. And then of course you go with 2001 or Clockwork Orange or great ones, you know.
Oh, well,
Anyway,
now you're talking. Thanks for giving me some insights.
American Graffiti.
What's that, mate?
American Graffiti, that was a good one.
Oh, American Graffiti. Yeah. Well, like we could sit here all day. I don't want to do that.
Yeah,
When it comes to film scores, oh my God, there's so many. It's great.
Anyway, so yeah, we'll next time I see you, we'll hang out and we'll talk about that.
I'll just stop the recording.